Hello! In our last lesson, we looked at how to create a navbar with HTML and CSS. We're able to style it to look something like this. However, our project is not done yet. When the user clicks on the drop-down menu, nothing happened yet. And even if we check the smaller screen and we click on the hamburger menu, nothing still happened yet. So we have 2 steps more before we have a responsive navbar menu. But for us to complete this step, let's take a look at how to add CSS classes so that it can cater for the drop-down list. Then it will also cater for when the user clicks the hamburger menu. It is that CSS that we're going to use JavaScript to toggle whenever the user clicks. So let's dive into it. For us to start, let's just leave a comment that tells us the style that we're about to declare. Now to do that, let's just add comment in our CSS. I'm just going to have my comment. Then I'm just going to say hamburger menu display. This should be G. Okay, so now that we have our comment, what we need to do is to make our various declaration. First, we want to make sure that all the A tag are display relative. So we're just going to say navbar. We want the drop down list item. We want the position relative. So let's look at what we're doing. We're targeting all this. We're targeting this very list item. Then we want it to display relative. What we want to do now is to target each of this A tag and give it icon. Remember, we have the plus icon in our design. We're going to see how we can achieve that. So for us to do that, we're still going to target this same item. In fact, let's just duplicate this. Then we use the before pseudo class. Our content. So we want to target an image. We're just going to say URL. Then in our URL, we can declare our image part. The image part is going to start from asset. Then we want to target the image. Then we want the plus circle. Okay, so with that, we're able to target the image. And the reason why we're having these double dots is because we have the CSS file inside the subfolder. So for us to be able to navigate outside the folder, we need these dots. So to navigate outside this very CSS folder, we need to reference 2 dots. To navigate outside the CSS folder, 1 step backward, then we need the other dots. This way our system will be able to save the file correctly. Let's move on. What we want to declare now is position to be absolute. When we have the position absolute, then we want the left to be minus 50 pixels. Okay, so if we check our code, nothing is happening yet. In fact, let's switch to mobile view because we are doing the hamburger menu. Nothing is happening yet, but you get to see the result of the declaration shortly. So now we've worked with the A tag. We've given the A tag the necessary thing that we want on it. Now let's target the P tag. For the P tag, we can still duplicate the same thing. Let's just remove this declaration and change this to P tag. For the P tag, we want the font size. We want the font size to be 1M. We want the font weight, we want it lighter. We want the font weight to be 300. So we want the margin top. The margin top can be 5 pixels. Okay, so we are progressing. So let's declare open nav. We don't have this class in our HTML yet, but we're going to try to see how it works. Then let's have menu list. we want the display to be block. So if we try to add the open nav to HTML, let's see what happens. We'll just come to the head here, add the open nav. We'll save it and check our code. You can see that it's showing, and all the classes that we added, including the icon, are showing as well. So again, let's try to further style Nav List. So we added this fresh class so that we can use JavaScript to toggle it whenever the user click. So moving forward, let's just position it absolute. Let's say the top. Now let's even check what it looks like. So position absolute basically will just allow you to move the things around. So let's say we want the top to be 100. You can see that it has moved away from the top 100 pixel. The next declaration we want to have is we want the width to be 100%. Okay, so for refresh, everything still works perfectly. Then we want the animation. We want to use the name fade in by 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Okay, so for this animation to work, we need to declare our keyframe. Now to declare the keyframe, we are just going to say that at keyframe we have the name fade in. So once we have these, we can then declare our transition or how we want it to look. So we want from, you can look up the keyframe in the lesson notes. So we can have the opacity from 0, then the tool can be 1. Let's just duplicate this and change this. So we are saying run from 0 to 1. Let's see how that works. You can see how it appears smoothly, and that's what we want to achieve with that. Okay, so now that we have that, let's proceed with our program. So we want this icon to float to the right. So for us to do that, we can just open nav, then we target the drop down link and just say display flex. And once we have the display flex, it should respond. You can see that it floats to the right, which is cool. Okay, so what we want to do now is to make sure that every sub menu is a bit inside and not just outside. So for us to do that, we can just set margin to push them in. So for us to set the margin, we can target the navbar, then menu list. We can just say, in fact, let's declare this at the top here, navbar, then menu list, drop down list. We can just say the margin left by 50 pixel. We'll check it. Check, you should be able to see that it's inside a bit, which is cool. Let's also add margin top to be 20 pixel. We'll check it. You can see that we have space in between now, which is cool. So let us add additional style on nav primary link. We want to add like a lighter line just below every of the primary links. We can just say margin top to be 30 pixel. If you check it, you'll be able to see space in between all of them. You can see that these are joined together, the two links. Let's display block. We should have them in separate lines. You can see in separate lines. Then let's declare border bottom. A border bottom is going to have 1 pixel tick. Then we want solid line. Let's use RGBA. can see that you have a very light line, but it would be nicer we add padding bottom so that there'll be space. So we can just say padding, we can give it 10 pixel, and if you check it, there's a space just under each of the primary buttons. So how about we want to add background here, and we want the background to just go from top to bottom each time this button is clicked. What we can do is to target the header. Then we're just going to add style to this header. So we'll just come here and just say header is a tag, then header with the open nav. So once we have this like that, we want animation. We can just title our animation expand. Then we want 5 seconds. Okay, but we want the actual height. The height to be, let's say, 100 viewports. So if you check it now, you can see that you have a background just that take the entire viewport, which is very cool. What we want to be able to do now is to set our animation to read, to start from the top to the bottom. So for us to do that, let's declare our keyframe. So our keyframe will be something similar to this, so we can just duplicate it and just have expand. But this time around, we're going to be using height, the height of 80 pixel to like height again 100 VH. Let's check it out. You can already see it reads from the top to the bottom, which is very cool. Alright, so at this point we now have something very sleek which is responsive to our mobile. So right now, if we just go ahead and remove the class manually and we save, you can see that the navbar has returned to its normal state. But if we come again and add the class, you can see that it works, and that's what we'll be using the JavaScript to do with the button. When the user click, we remove the class, and when the user click again, we add the class again. And that's how it works. And this is how we wrap it up for this session. In our next lesson, we're looking at how to add classes and also CSS style, so that when we have the desktop view, once the user click on each of these elements, is going to display. So we're going to do the styling for that. In our next lesson, we're looking at how to add the CSS style for this, so that when the user click on any of the submenu or any of the drop down, they'll be able to see the item. But for us to be able to do this, we need to use our CSS to style this component, just like the way we did the hamburger menu. Then we add a class and remove the class each time the user click. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.